afternoon. I was going to say good morning, and that would not be correct. So, as Stephanie said, my name is Johanna Schwant. Pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am currently the director of DEI. But I did previously work in an admissions and an academic advising role. I was very excited for the opportunity to present today and talk about paying for school and all things financial, just because I remember being a first generation student and being through college and not really understanding everything I was getting the letters and the notifications and the you might be dropped from school and what does that mean? And it just was overwhelming. And so hoping today to really just give a very broad overview of what your options are to secure your classes, but then also know that after we're done with the presentation, we can have individual meetings. We'll turn off the recording. And then if there is something that's more specific and you don't want to ask by either privately messaging Stephanie or asking with the group aloud, you can certainly wait and then we can visit. So I'm going to share my screen. And I have a brief PowerPoint. Do you see that on your screen? Perfect. Okay. So the first thing I want to do is just talk about all your options. Let's see here. And what it is you'll need to do to secure your classes. If you have any questions, I've listed the 3 main phone numbers that you may need to reach out to. So you have our business office, our financial aid department, and then our general student services department. So if you need to get a hold of an advisor, admissions rep, you're really not sure who you should talk to, you can always call student services. And then our front desk team will do their best to ask a few more questions and get you connected with the right department. As you prepare to start your classes in the fall, if you haven't looked at it yet, there's a few different ways to secure your classes so that way you don't get dropped. And what that means is we're just looking to figure out how you're going to end up paying and securing your classes through financial aid, payment plans, third-party payments. There's some deferment or postponing your payment options depending on what you may qualify for. The main ones we're going to talk about today are related to your payment plan information and to your financial aid. But certainly if you have a third-party payment or if there's another question you have, let us know. Anybody who is currently in high school and is doing our PSEO program, if you're accepted for that program, you should not have to pay for any courses that are covered by the PSEO program. So if you do have questions on that, be sure to chat with your academic advisor to ensure you're in PSEO approved courses. So one of the things I want to chat about is knowing our due dates. Not knowing the due dates and being mindful of when tuition is, how much tuition will be, that can really be where students get fees added on. So while fees may differ depending on the subject and course or major you're in general, our fall semester tuition rate is roughly $203 for 1 credit of on-campus courses, and 1 credit of online will be about $220. So I want you to keep this in mind because you can see your bill in your e-services once you've registered for classes. But if you're trying to think of a rough estimate or do some budgeting, that is a general rule that you can use for our credits. The link at the top you see is to go directly to our tuition and fees page where you can see a full breakdown. They have a wonderful downloadable chart so you can see how much for 12 credits, 15 credits, and so on. In terms of paying for school and avoiding those late fees that may happen, what we want to make sure you do is meet one of the previous requirements that I mentioned and have that set up by the 5th business day. So typically that's that Friday of the first week of the semester. The exact due dates here you can see would be Friday, August 26th for fall, and then Friday, January 1st for spring semester. If you have questions on what it means to secure your classes by this due date, you can always reach out to your academic advisor or to student services, and then we can review your file to ensure that you're meeting one of the requirements. How many of you, and you can put it in the chat or you can do your video or unmute yourself, how many of you have applied for financial aid? Let's see here. I'm going to adjust my screen. Okay, I see some hands. So with financial aid, your federal aid, which is what you would have done through FAFSA.gov based on your tax information. If you have applied, you've already completed the steps that you see on the screen. If you have not applied, this is the information that you'll need so that you can complete that application. It can be done online or through a mobile app. It can be completed on your phone, or you can get onto a computer or tablet. And so I would estimate it takes about a half hour to complete if you have everything ready. There's even features for you to import information so that way you don't have to copy all the numbers from your taxes. If you need to apply for financial aid and you have not done so yet, you can certainly let us know, or you can go onto our website and find a link so you can schedule a meeting with one of our financial aid advisors. The FAFSA is going to give you a couple different options to pay for school. And so we will talk about those options here in the next slide. Before I talk about that, I also want to point out that we have an option in Minnesota that's called the Minnesota DREAM Act or the Prosperity Act. This is something that's through the Office of Higher Ed. And this is an opportunity for students who don't yet have citizenship or residency and would otherwise be considered undocumented or under the DACA status. Students will know if they're eligible for this. If you're not sure, you can certainly reach out to me. This is not something through the federal government, and it is not something that is a part of Ridgewater, but we are happy to assist you in completing that application to see if you can get some additional funding to support your education. In general, when I talk about financial aid, I'll be talking about the FAFSA or federal aid options. And so when you get your award letter, if you haven't looked at that information, you're going to see there may be 3 types of information listed. You're going to see information about student loans. You may see information about grants, and you may see information on work study. Now, work study, if you did not select that box when you applied for your FAFSA, it won't be on your award letter. So if you think you might want to have a job where you work on campus, you can get paid every 2 weeks. Pay is, I believe, $15 an hour. Then if you don't see that information on your award letter, please check in with our financial aid department so we can determine if you're eligible. The other 2 options you may see is the grant money, which is gifted funding, and it's need-based. So that's not money that you'll have to pay back, and that can be awarded based on the number of credits you take. When you read your award letter, we're going to want to make sure that you know how many credits you're planning to be enrolled in, because that can influence how much of that grant dollars you see being awarded to you. The loans is the option that everybody will have eligibility for, although not everybody may want to use that option. There's going to be more than one type of loan you may or may not see on your award letter. If you have questions on what all these options are, you can always meet with one of our academic advisors, our success coaches, or visit with financial aid. Once you get your award letter, something that I recommend is to go onto our website and review this Grad Ready app that we have. This is an opportunity to really review budgeting and smart borrowing. And one of the things we do is help our students learn about how to budget and borrow smartly, so that way you're not going into more debt than you may need to. Sometimes it's easy for students to just click accept, 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 and accept the full dollar amount, even though they may not need all of that funding. And so if you do need to accept the full dollar amount you see, certainly that's what it's there for. But if you don't, we like to help you plan that out further. A big question I get about financial aid is, well, what happens with the money? So I've applied for financial aid. I've completed all the steps that I need to accept my award money. When do I actually get the check? The way your funding works at Ridgewater is once you've completed all those steps, your money will then be applied towards your bill. And if you have funding remaining, that will be reimbursed to you through a check or direct deposit. Those disbursement dates is roughly 3 to 4 days of processing. And so you can see on the screen that for fall semester, it'll be sometime after September 2nd. Students that want to get their funding quicker, we do recommend direct deposit. We also understand that that's not always an option for students. So be sure that we know your address and we have that information on file, especially if you're planning to get a check sent to you. That way it gets to you quickly and it gets to you at your desired address. So for those of you that have logged in, you all acknowledge that you have applied for financial aid. If you haven't done so yet, what you're going to want to do is log into your e-services. So e-services is where you registered for your classes. Once you're on the e-services, you're going to go to that navigation pane and you're going to be able to see everything for options that you can review: your bills, your account management, your financial aid status, and your course schedule. For the sake of our presentation, what we will be looking at is the financial aid and the bills and payments option. And what I'd like to point out is with the financial aid tab, if you have not received any notification, please check that tab for an update on where your application is at. If you don't see anything, then please reach out to us and let us know. Sometimes what happens is students will start an application, but they don't fully submit it. Or I've had students who submit an application and don't realize that Ridgewater is not on there. As students can add up to 10 schools on their FAFSA, sometimes our school gets missed. If all of that has been checked and you know you submitted your app, we can then work with our financial aid team so that they can review it for you further and see where your application might be hung up. After you've reviewed your letter, you'll then be able to look at other options and steps that are needed, such as accepting your financial aid. You do have to notify us that you're planning to use your financial aid to pay for school, and all of that can be done in your e-services. The other piece I want to point out is your bills and payments tab. So once you're in your e-services and you click on bills and payments, you're going to have an option where you can look at your bill. If you're attending or if you've applied any other schools within the Minnesota state system, you will also see that information. You can then click on the link and you can download your bill or you can view it in more detail. At that point, students do have options to make payments, set up a payment plan, as well as give information so that others can access your bill. So if anybody has someone that might be assisting in paying for school, rather than you giving them your login information, you can provide access. A big piece that I like to talk about is the opportunity for payment plans. Something that I always wish I had more information on, whether I was told this as a student or maybe truthfully I just didn't pay attention as a student, is the option for payment plans. At Ridgewater College, we work with a company called Nelnet. And so they're a third-party company that we partner with to provide payment plan opportunities. What this means is that while our first deadline has passed, if you were to set up a payment plan for your bill by August 25th, you would have options to divide your bill into 3 payments. Then the later you set it up, the less payment opportunities. For some students, I've seen where they choose to do this because they don't want to accept any of the loans, others where they do this for a part of their bill, and some who are just not applying for financial aid at this point are not eligible, so payment plans is the best option. Things to know about our payment plan is that there is a non-refundable enrollment fee. And that there may be additional fees if your payment was returned. Because these are automatic payments, it is something that we try to emphasize that you do have to work with the Nelnet company. If you have questions, we certainly have enough of that basic information to try and help support you. But really any of the how-tos and specifics, we go through Nelnet. All of this can be accessed through your e-services, and then it will prompt you to create your account and give you all your options. If you do not want to do a payment plan at all, but you still want to make some payments, you can log into your e-service and do make a payment, where you can make payments of $300 or 15%, whichever is less, to secure your classes. So if you're someone who's not sure if you want a payment plan, you're not sure if your financial aid will cover it, or you're not eligible, you can certainly log in and begin making payments to reach that 15% or $300 mark. Secure your classes by the beginning of the semester, and then determine if you need to make a payment plan or can pay your bill off in full by the final due date, which is typically towards the end of September. So let's say you're someone who is not using the payment plan option, you cannot pay your bill in full, and you know that you're going to be accepting student loans. New borrowers are going to need to log in to their studentaid.gov account. So that's the login information that you used when you applied for your FAFSA. And you're going to have to complete two forms. One is called the master promissory note, and the other is called entrance counseling. These are essentially forms for you to help your understanding in what it means to borrow loans, to have the repayment options, and to, again, ensure that we have smart borrowing happen. Because while we recognize that students need their financial aid to not only pay for tuition and fees and books, they also have life expenses. We really want to strive on helping students understand that money management, as student loans do carry interest with them. And we want to make sure that you know all your opportunities and options in terms of making payments and leaving your education with the least amount of debt. Once you've completed that, that's when you'll have successfully accepted all of your loans. So if you do decide to accept loans and you don't complete those two forms, it will be pending. Our college cannot actually process that acceptance until these forms are complete. In that financial aid tab in e-services, you'll also see the direct deposit setup option. And so this is something that I do strongly encourage all of our students to set up. Even if you're not sure if you're going to be getting any reimbursement money, it's better to have it on file and ready rather than we find out that you do have funding and now we have to wait a little bit longer for those checks to be mailed out. So this was a fairly brief overview because what I really wanted to do is just kind of turn this into a conversation and answer some questions for you. What I'm going to ask is if you have questions or concerns that you put it in the chat or that you go ahead and just unmute yourself. Because financial aid and paying for school can be a very personal experience, what we wanted to do is really just provide a broad overview so you know where all your options are and then know that you have resources. So you can certainly call any of the departments that you see on the screen. You can visit the financial aid link where you can make a virtual appointment, or you can certainly put it in the chat right now. So all of you, I believe, had said you've applied for financial aid. Have you had a chance to check your status and see where the application is at? Do you know if your aid has processed? Okay, so if your aid has processed, your next step is going to be to log into your e-services to review all your options, and then certainly let us know what type of questions or concerns you may have. A big piece I like to emphasize is read the award letter, compare that to your schedule, and then look at the chart breakdown. Depending on your grants or loans, that'll impact how much funding you have to pay your bill. If that's too much for you to do all of that, let us know. We're happy to visit with you and talk about what your aid looks like compared to your bill right now so that you can plan ahead. I do see a question in the chat. If someone takes out loans, when do those need to be repaid? So student loans do not need to be repaid until after you graduate or fall below 6 credits or part-time status, and then you have a grace period of 6 months. Now, with that being said, there are definitely options out there if life circumstances are happening and you cannot afford a payment. You would go through that studentaid.gov website, and then you'll be able to do some forms and questionnaires to see if you can defer or postpone payments, if you can have lower payment options, or if you can consolidate payments. There's really just a handful of opportunities out there. There's some repayment options that would be income-based. There's some that if you say you want to pay it off as full as possible or as quickly, they work with you. I can't think of all the options, but there's certainly, I want to say 5 or 6 different styles or opportunities in terms of repayment plans. Now, Johanna's statement would be, if you can afford to make payments early, go for it. But if you can't, don't feel like you have to. When will I receive my award letter for federal student aid and grants? So if you've applied for financial aid and you have not received a notification, you don't see anything in your email or in your e-services, then let's take a look at your file together and we'll review it, because you should have received a notification. If it's been, I would say the turnaround is probably 2 or 3 weeks in business days. And if you haven't received anything, let us know. If you just applied then it may take a little bit longer. Okay, so I see a few folks who are saying they haven't received anything yet. So if you have not seen any type of update, there's a few options. So the first would be certainly check your e-services and that financial aid. Make sure the academic year shows fall 2022. If you still don't see anything there, you can log into your FAFSA application to ensure that it was submitted. Make sure that it's the 22-23 application. I know that that can sometimes happen because there's more than one application out in the system. And then if you still don't see anything, let's have you call one of our student services team members. So calling that 5971 number that's on the screen. So 320-222-5971, and we'll be able to dig into your file and see where it's at. If someone would like to message me right now, you can certainly private message me, and then I can take a look at your file after this call and then let you know as well. But the biggest piece would be, let's start checking those login accounts to make sure everything was submitted. So a question I get sometimes is about students who aren't eligible for FAFSA, students who are international, students who have other citizenship and resident statuses and may not be eligible. What do they do for funding? A great question that I always think about is, well, how do we help students pay for their school? And so even if you don't qualify for the financial aid options, as I mentioned, we have the payment plan path that you can do, but we also have scholarships. Now, while the scholarship for fall semester has passed at Ridgewater, we award twice a year. So know that deadlines will be in October for spring scholarship funding. So scholarships are, again, free money that you would not have to pay back if you're eligible. You can find that one on our website, and then just know that that's an online application. It's one application, and then it actually disperses to all the opportunities for you. So you don't have to do multiple applications. You don't have to figure out which ones you might qualify for. It's really open to you. Just do the questions, submit it, and the system will filter and take care of it for you. When is financial aid dispersed for fall semester? That is a great question. So that will be after the September 2nd deadline, assuming that you've accepted everything and that you have funding eligible. At Ridgewater, you do not get your funding and then pay your bill. The systems speak to each other so that your financial aid pays off your bill. And then if you have any funding remaining, that will be sent to you. If you do not yet accept any type of financial aid, so maybe you decide to wait until, let's say, October, November to decide on student loans, that disbursement will take a little bit longer to process, and then it'll either be sent through direct deposit or by check.
So you know how like the deadline for the fees is August 26th for fall.
Mm-hmm.
But then the scholarships aren't coming out until September 2nd.
So the disbursement of the funding won't happen till that time because the systems are speaking to each other. So your accounts will show, and the business office and the financial aid office and the scholarship department, as long as your fundings are on file, those systems will speak. And then if you have any money remaining after your bill is taken care of, that will then be dispersed to you. But we're kind of eliminating that middle step by having the systems speak to each other.
Okay.
Can students use financial aid to pay for books? Great question. Yes. So I believe the rule is still 2 weeks before the start of the semester. And you can actually go onto our bookstore website, order your books, and charge it against financial aid up to $1,000. And so what's great about that option is that you can begin your semester ready with all of your materials in hand. If you get your materials and within that first week and you decide you don't need that book, or that course isn't what you expected and you drop, you do have that first week to return your materials in the condition you got it, and then you would not have to pay for that. What's nice with the financial aid and our new policy that our bookstore offers is that now students can do that without having to worry about how they're going to get your books or supplies or pay for it. It's added onto your bill. You can use your financial aid. You can do the payment plan options. Um, with financial aid, as long as your application is in our system, so even if it's not fully processed yet, you will be eligible to apply and use that to get your materials. Your classes will be secured. So I do want to emphasize that if you've applied for the FAFSA and that application is on file with Ridgewater, then you do not have to make an additional payment right away. You certainly can if you want to reduce that cost, especially if you're thinking you'll mainly have student loans, but you're not required to. I do want to add with the books is that financial aid option would be specifically through our bookstore. I know that I've had questions like that. Well, can I use my financial aid and buy from Amazon or Target or wherever? And so besides the fact that we recommend our bookstore, so you know that you're getting the right materials and you get it in time, is that you do have that benefit of charging against financial aid without directly having to make payments right away. Okay, so many of you probably registered for the full year. At Ridgewater, we do full year registration. And so you may end up wondering, how do I pay for my spring classes? You won't see that bill right away, but know that when you accept financial aid, you can accept for the full year. Again, it's important to know the credits you take, and it's important to know that if you change your schedule by spring semester, the dollar amount that you accept may differ. So the biggest thing I want to emphasize is know how many credits you're taking and then compare that to your award information. And if you have questions on that, please reach out to us. We're happy to help you read that and make a decision on terms of what that looks like. Um, as you saw in the earlier slide, there's a lot of options to secure your classes. So we just want to make sure that you find what works best for you. Okay. I know that we didn't have as much information today because, again, paying for school is a very personal decision and every student is going to have their own path to take on that. What we want to emphasize is just to know that you have your options. And if you have not began your FAFSA, if you haven't set up a payment plan yet, if you have questions on making payments in advance, please reach out to us. I'm going to add the slide again with our contact information so that you have all that available to you. All right, well, we'll stop recording and I'm going to hang out on the call just in case anyone has questions that they'd like to ask individually.